If you love golden retriever type of male main characters, you would love this book. That book was just perfection to me. I can just feel that this author had so much fun writing this book. Y'all, I hated this book. This was so disturbing. So disturbing. No. No, 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 no. I don't like it. Hello everyone and welcome back. Welcome to my May reading wrap up. This was a little bit of a slower month for me. I actually only read 6 books, which depending on how fast you read may be a lot or a little. I only got through about half of my TBR, and so I have a little bit to make up throughout the summer because I keep buying summer books. But without further ado, let's get into the book. So this month I read 6 books. I read 2 mystery, 3 romance, and 1 fantasy. And the first book that I read this month was First Light Wins by Ashley Elston. Absolutely loved this book. I ended up picking this up because I read Anatomy of an Alibi by her earlier this year and really loved it. I feel like this is a pretty popular book in the mystery genre. I had heard a lot of people say that they loved it, and I really liked the concept of it, and so I decided to read it and really loved it. So this is about Evie Porter, and she is basically a con artist, but she works for someone named Mr. Smith. He will put her in these situations where she has some type of goal to obtain for his clients. One of the scenarios in the book is like getting a coach fired, getting blackmail on a certain political figure, and so she's constantly being dropped into new situations with a new identity, getting in, getting out. However, her current target, Ryan Sumner, has been her longest con yet, and she doesn't really know what's going on because she was basically supposed to infiltrate Ryan's life, make him fall in love with her, and then she has been working on getting something for her boss, but her boss has kind of gone silent on her. She feels like there is more at play than what she actually knows about, and so she starts to kind of double cross her boss a little bit. It was so good. I have discovered that this is by far my favorite type of mystery book. I love con artist mysteries because it feels like being a spy to me. There's not anything super disturbing or really gory about this book. It's more the suspense of what is actually going on. Our main character Evie is one of those people that things are happening behind the scenes that we as the reader don't know about, that come to light after it's done, and you see how her brain works and how she's able to manipulate all these situations. It was so good. Truly one of my favorite mysteries that I've read this year. I might have liked it even better than Anatomy of an Alibi just because of the con artist aspect. I loved it. I have recommended this to so many people at the bookstore since I read it because I couldn't put it down, and I wasn't scared, but I still had that suspense and I wanted to know what was going on, and the way she works everything all at the end, I just loved it. I really, really loved it. If you are in the mood for a new mystery to get into, highly recommend this one. I cannot wait for her to come out with a new book. So this one and Anatomy of an Alibi are her only 2 mystery books. I hope she writes more because I love her writing so much. So the next 2 books that I read were for my Y2K reading vlog. I read The Rom-Con and The Decoy Girlfriend, and I obviously go into more detail in that video, but both of these I really enjoyed. I honestly don't know which one I enjoyed more. They were very different. So The Rom-Con is a retelling of How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, and our main character, what's her name? Cassidy. She writes for a women's magazine called Siren, and she has been out and about in the dating world, hasn't really found her match, and she's really close with her grandmother, and her grandmother gives her this guide that was handed out to military wives in the 50s on how to be a good wife. And then she also has this guide called 125 Tips to Hook a Husband, and Cassidy is a very independent woman. She does not agree with any of these tips, and so she decides that she's going to turn this into a what not to do article for Siren, and she goes and tries to find someone to like test the tips on, and she finds Jack. Jack is the owner of Siren's rival magazine called Brawler. It's a men's magazine and it's very offensive, very misogynistic, and so she decides that she's going to test the tips on Jack and basically try to trip him up. She's going to act like this perfect wife, very submissive and very old school 50s kind of housewife, and when he reacts well to it, she's going to flip it on him and like use it to make fun of him. Basically it doesn't really work, and she is starting to see that Jack isn't really falling for any of her tricks and he's actually a good guy, and they start to fall in love, and she tries to figure out what she's going to do about the article. She's going to go through with it, and yeah, it was really cute. I really hated the ending. I didn't like the 3rd act breakup, and I don't feel like it was handled very well, and so that was my reasoning for not giving this a higher rating. I still would consider this 4 stars. Other than that, it was still a fun read. I would recommend this to you if you love How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. If that is like your favorite movie and you love anything to do with that storyline, definitely read this book because it was a really cute book, and I loved this author's writing. She has a new book coming out in July or August, and I definitely want to read that one because yeah, I enjoyed it. It was just third act breakup that I wasn't super happy with, but it's really hard to write a third act breakup, I feel like, where everyone's gonna be happy. So yes, if you love How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, definitely read this one. And then the next book that I read was The Decoy Girlfriend. Our main character, Freya, she looks just like a famous actress named Mandy. Freya is a writer and she's writing her second novel and she is really struggling for inspiration. She had been mistaken for Mandy a few times in the past, and so she decides to go out as Mandy, kind of as inspiration for her book. She gets the VIP treatment at clubs and she goes out to try to see what it would be to live a life like that. But she gets caught one day by Taft, who is Mandy's boyfriend, but they aren't actually dating and they're in a PR relationship. Freya kind of gets Mandy and Taft in trouble because she is seen running away from Taft, trying to make sure that he doesn't see that she's not Mandy, but in the paparazzi it looks like Mandy is running away from Taft and they're in a lover's quarrel. They have a new movie coming out, so they don't want a lot of bad press, and so to make it up to Mandy tells Freya that she has to pretend to be her for a full month so that Mandy can get a break, because Mandy is getting a little burnt out on being famous. She has a really strict agent and she just needs a break, and so she decides that Freya is going to pretend to be Mandy one last time for a full month, give Mandy a break from all of her engagements as this movie is coming out. Freya and Taft have to move in together because their agents are telling them to. We have a little bit of forced proximity with them living together, obviously fake dating, and it was really cute. My favorite part of this book was Taft. He became one of my favorite male main characters ever in this book. He is the sweetest man in the whole world. We get a dual POV in this book, and so we're in his brain and we're seeing how he's interacting with Mandy and interacting with Freya and all of his backstory. He doesn't have great friends, he doesn't have a great family, but he's still just such a sweet soul, and the way that he treats Freya is so nice. And this book was going to be a 5-star. However, again, I didn't like the third act breakup, and I just felt like the third act breakup didn't make sense because Taft really acts out at the end and it does not match his character that we have seen in the book. He's very much characterized as this very sweet and wholesome soul, and then he kind of acts out at the end of the book, and it just didn't make sense with his character in my brain, and so that was the reason why I didn't give this 5 stars, but it was really close. I would still recommend it. It was pretty short, just a fun, cute, like mistaken identity story. If you love golden retriever type of male main characters, you would love this book because he's just perfect. He's so cute and he really made the story for me. Alright, and the next book I read was The Dachshund Wears Prada by Stephanie London. So this is actually for another reading vlog that I'm not finished editing yet, so you will see it after this video. That one will be posted soon, but you'll see more about this book in that video. But I really enjoyed this. This month I read books that I really enjoyed and I couldn't decide whether or not to rate them as 5 stars. I felt that way with First Lie Wins and this one. And my issue right now is I keep thinking back to Sun and the Star Maker. That book was just perfection to me. Everything about it, like I couldn't tell you one bad thing that I disliked about that book because everything was perfect. The writing, the dialogue, the storyline, the emotion that I felt from it, like it was just perfect. I'm struggling to rate other things 5 stars because they aren't on that level, when in reality I loved this book and I feel like it should be 5 stars, but it wasn't on the level of Sun and the Star Maker, and so I'm struggling to rate things that highly because they don't measure up to that book. But I almost feel like Sun and the Star Maker should be in its own category. I feel like Sun and the Star Maker should be a 6-star rating and this one should be a 5-star. So I'm trying to not compare everything to that book because this is so different. This is just a cutesy romance book and that was a full-on young adult fantasy book, but I don't know. So I've been going back and forth on whether I want to rate this one 5 stars because it was really close to being 5 stars, and the way that I enjoyed it and how much fun I had reading it, I feel like should make it 5 stars. Anyways, this was The Dachshund Wears Prada. This was adorable. So this is a romance book. It follows a similar plotline as The Devil Wears Prada, but our main character Isla is a social media manager and she has kind of taken a fall from grace because she was managing a young actress's social media and something goes wrong and she accidentally leaves an Instagram live running. Something happens on the Instagram live and it kind of ruins this young actress's career because everyone's making fun of her for what happens on this Instagram live. And so Isla is blacklisted from the social media world, and she's really desperate because she actually has custody of her 16-year-old sister. Isla is in her, I think, early to mid 20s. She's trying to care for her sister. She's desperate to find a job. She can't get anything in social media, and so she meets Theo. Theo is part of this kind of American royalty family in New York. His parents passed away when he was really young in a car crash because they were being chased by paparazzi. He was raised by his grandmother, and his grandmother has just passed away, and so he is in a really bad place in life. He hates being in the public eye, and so he does everything in his power to be a private person. In the book, his nickname is the Hermit of Fifth Avenue because he quite literally avoids the press at all costs. So he is kind of our Miranda Priestley character, but after his grandmother passes away, she leaves him her dachshund named Camilla in her will, and he was very, very close to his grandmother, and so he can't give up this dachshund. He has to take care of her, but they do not get along. Camilla is a little bit of a terror and is like tearing up his house, has run off all of these different pet sitters, and Theo and Isla happen to meet one day and he offers her a job to take care of Camilla. She takes it even though she doesn't want to be a dog sitter, but she's desperate to basically put food on the table for her and her sister, so she takes the job and she discovers that she's actually good with Camilla, and she kind of gets Theo to thaw with her a little bit too, and they fall in love in the process, of course. And the reason why I want to rate this book 5 stars is because it has one of the best third act breakups and third act makeups that I have ever read. I feel like so many times with a third act breakup, one person acts out and then they apologize and then everything is forgiven and the story ends there. But in this book, both Isla and Theo mess up and they have this big blow up fight and they break up, but both Isla and Theo also know that they were in the wrong and they do actions to prove how sorry they are. Instead of just asking for forgiveness for what they did, they both consciously make choices and make changes in their life to prove how sorry they are, and it was just so good. Seriously, one of my favorite third act breakups ever, just because of how the makeup was handled. I just loved it. I loved everything about this book. It was sweet but still sexy. It was funny. I loved our side characters as well. This book actually has a sequel and it follows Isla's best friend, and I've already ordered that one and I'm so excited to read it. But yeah, I just feel like I discovered a new favorite author because I loved her writing in this book. It was a very easy book to read. Anyway, that was a very long explanation for this book. It was really cute. Highly, highly recommend it. All right, next up we have Starside by Alex Astor. So this is the start of a new fantasy series from Alex Astor. This is only the second book I've ever read by her. I read Summer in the City by her last year. Absolutely loved it. And I did really enjoy this one. It was kind of ridiculous and it kind of reminded me of Crescent City by Sarah J Maas because there are so many different characters and species and magical creatures and all kinds of stuff in this book all jumbled into one. So it follows our main character. I can't remember anyone's name character. This world is divided into two sides of a wall. So you have Star Side and Storm Side. Storm Side is where the humans live. Star Side is where the immortals live. And they used to all live together, but this world is also kind of ruled over by gods. And at some point they built a wall between Star Side and Storm Side and they're not able to pass back and forth. However, every 50 years, humans are allowed to go on a quest to the immortal realm and they have to cross all the way over. They're granted a cup of magic and they have to make it back before the gates close. Eris decides that she is going on this quest. Her entire village was killed by a goddess many, many years ago, including her entire family. And so she is going on this quest to get revenge on that goddess. Along the way, she meets Harlan Raker, who is a captain in the King's Guard, and they have a little bit of a past. He did something that we don't really know about, and Eris really hates him, and they end up having to work together on this quest to make it to the end of the immortal realm. It was very ridiculous, but it was so fun to read. It really did remind me of Crescent City because I can just feel that this author had so much fun writing this book, adding all these elements into it. There were a good amount of moments in this book that got very gruesome and very detailed that were making me feel a little woozy. Like, it was very graphic in terms of the violence, and I think that's the reason why it it wasn't a 5-star because everything else I loved. We definitely get an enemies to lovers situation in this book. The book leaves off on a pretty big cliffhanger, so I'm very excited to read the second one. The second one is already coming out this year. She is the quickest writer I think I've ever seen. She's already had like 3 books come out this year, and she also has the Barbie book coming out at the end of the summer that I'm so excited for. But yeah, I'm excited to read the next one. I really haven't heard anyone talk about this book, so I don't know what the reception has been, but personally I thought it was just a really fun ride. Very ridiculous, but just a fun book to read. The spicy scenes get a little crazy. Again, the violence was a little too graphic for me, but I was able to kind of get it out of my head and just like skip past those parts. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna read the second one at least. And then the last book that I read this month was Verity by Colleen Hoover. Y'all, I hated this book, and everyone that I know that has read this book absolutely loved it. I don't think I've talked to a single person that has read this book that didn't like it, but I hated this book. This was so disturbing, so disturbing. Like, this was just definitely not the book for me, and I don't know why I decided to read it, because I heard that it was scary and like very suspenseful, but everyone talks about the twist in this book being just like the craziest twist they've ever read. I did not think that the twist was that crazy. I don't know why. It didn't shock me that that was the twist. I felt like it was very well set up in the book. It was disturbing. I hated it. Verity is awful. Everything that I was reading about what she did just was terrible. I cannot read about kids in mystery books. Like, I just hate it. I don't want to read about that. We were definitely dealing with like a psychopath character in this book. I hate reading about that. Everything about this book I did not like, and I feel like that's a very controversial take because, again, everyone loves this book, but personally I hated this book. I never want to read another book like that ever again. This is actually the first Colleen Hoover book that I ever read. I tried to read It Ends With Us and didn't finish it. I wish I didn't finish this book, and honestly, if people hadn't hyped up the ending so much, I probably wouldn't have finished this book. But I just wanted to see like if she could shock me as much as she shocked everybody else. But I didn't think it was that shocking. I was like, I feel like they set it up for it to be that way. I don't know. I did not like this book. Like, I want to rate it a 1 star. That's how much I hated this book, because it was just disturbing. It made me feel sick to my stomach. Everyone else loves it. It has the most insane rating on Goodreads. I think it's over 4 million ratings, and it has over a 4-star average rating. No. I don't like it. I am someone that does not deal with violence very well in books, and when it's with a fantasy book, I feel like I'm able to take myself out of it a little bit. Like, it was kind of getting to me in Starside. It kind of took me out of the story a few times, which I think is why it wasn't a 5-star. But it's still, I'm able to suspend belief a little bit because it's a fantasy book and it's so unlike our world. But with Verity, it just seemed so real, and I can totally see where someone crazy in the real world could act like that. And oh, I just didn't like it. I did not like it. I hate giving a book that bad of a rating, but yeah, I really didn't like it. And I'm not saying anything if you liked it that you're a bad reader or whatever, because literally all of my friends, every single person that I know that has read that book loved it, and I was just like, something is not right with my brain because I cannot enjoy stuff like that. That was the end of this reading month. Pretty short and sweet, but I did find some good books. I think my top favorites were First Line Wins and Dachshund Wears Prada. But yes, I'm so excited for June. I have so many summer books. You're gonna get a summer book haul very soon. But again, as always, if you would like to see any specific content from me for this summer, please let me know. I do have a lot of fun summer videos planned, but of course, if there's anything in particular that you would like to see me film, feel free to let me know. I'm happy to take that into consideration. But yes, that's it for May. I'm excited for June and what summer reading holds, and that's gonna be it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video very soon. Bye!